Okay, so I am going to share my whiteboard. Right, so I've shared my screen and I hope that the screen is visible as well. Okay, so in the last class, we were discussing quadratic equations. Specifically, we were solving complex quadratic equations. Let's talk about another example. I'll write down the third example from this section. Very, very important. Okay, it is 3 multiplied by 9 power x minus 28 multiplied by 3 power x plus 9 equals 0. Okay, so this is an equation which you need to solve using quadratic equations. Okay, now I've been telling you guys that we have one fixed method through which we see if we can convert this equation to a quadratic equation or not. Okay, we need to determine that first. Okay, so all right, so I need to see if the square of this number would give me this number. Okay, if the square of 3x would give me 9 power x, then that means this equation can be converted into a quadratic equation. Okay, so this is how we are going to solve it. Okay, so I know that the square of 3x would give me 9x. How? Let's see. 3 power x, and I'm writing down 2 outside, so this would give me 3 power 2x, and this can be written as 9 power x, right? So 1 second only, a lot of students have just joined, so I'm just waiting for their audio and then I am going to explain this again. Okay, all right, so those who have just joined, we are talking about this third question from the section we were discussing yesterday. Yesterday, we were talking about solving more complex quadratic equations, okay? Now, this is an equation in front of you. The examiner wants you to solve this equation. Now, you don't know how to solve this equation directly. The only way we know is to convert it into a quadratic equation, right? When we will convert this into a quadratic equation, we know how we are going to solve it, but first we need to see if this can be converted to a quadratic equation or not. Okay, what was the rule? If I square this variable, I should get this one. I know that 3 power x, and when I will square this, this would give me 3 power 2x, and I can write it as 9x. Okay, since it works, this means this equation can be converted into a quadratic equation. And let's talk about the solution now. So I can use a substitution, and that substitution would be y is equal to this variable directly, 3 power x. So this would mean that 3 into, I need to write it down this way, y squared minus 28 into y plus 9 equals 0. So this is a quadratic equation which you need to solve. Okay, I know that y squared is going to be 3 power 2x, that is 9 power x, right? So I've written y squared here. Okay, now this is a quadratic equation. Please try factorizing it. We need to solve for y first. Once we have the value of y, then we will solve for x. Okay, very well done. Excellent, Saad. Very good. Okay. All right. So let's try factorizing it. 3 into 9 gives me 27y squared. And I need two numbers such that when I multiply them, I get 27y squared. When I add them, I get minus 28y. So it would be 3y squared minus 27y minus y plus 9 equals 0. 3y can be taken common. It would give me y minus 9 Then I can take -1 common and it would give me y minus 9 equals 0. So the factors would be 3y minus 1 equals 0 and it would be y minus 9 equals 0. So this would give me y equals 1 by 3 and this would give me y equals 9. Okay. Any confusion so far? Please be honest with yourselves and tell me if it is good or not. I can explain it again. I would not mind. This is comparatively difficult, so you are more than welcome if you have any queries. Okay, well done, Saad. Very good. It is correct. Your answer is correct. Okay. All right. So this is the value of y. Okay. I know that y is equal to 3 power x. If y is equal to 1 by 3, so I can plug in over here. So it would give me 1 by 3 equals 3 power x. And now I need to take this 3 in the numerator. So it would become 3 power minus 1 equals 3 power x. Now bases are same and they are equal. It means that the powers are also equal. So this would imply x is equal to -1. Okay. And now we will see for y is equals to 9 because this was the second solution. Again, this was a substitution. So it would become 9 equals 3 power x. I can write this 9 as 3 squared equals 3x and they're equal. The bases are also equal. It means that the powers would also be equal. So this would imply x is equal to 2. So these are going to be the two answers for this question. Yes, students. Are we good with this? Any confusions in this question? Please confirm.
No, miss.
Okay, great. And yes, Munja, Mustafa.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So I hope it's good then. Okay, so this was the 5th section of this chapter, right? I am going to clear the screen now. Okay, let's talk about the 6th section of quadratic equations. It is maximum and minimum values of a quadratic function. Okay, let me just write down the heading first. It is 1.6 maximum and minimum values of a quadratic function. Okay, this is what we need to discuss for now. All right, okay. Now, for this, in order to find the maximum and minimum value of a quadratic function, we need to understand the plotting of the quadratic function. Okay, now you guys would be having a little background about it, but still I will explain in detail. So when it comes to the plotting of a quadratic function, okay, a quadratic function is a function with degree 2. Okay, for example, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is the general form of a quadratic equation. Okay, so when it comes to the plotting, the curve would be either of this type or it would be something of this type. Okay, so it could be a u-shaped curve, it could be other way around. Let me make this one more properly, like this. Okay, and this as well, something of this type. Okay, now how do we know that if it would be u-shaped or if it would be other way around? So basically we need to look at the coefficient of x squared, that is a. I'll explain, do not worry. This is a greater than 0 and this is a less than 0. Okay, all right. Okay, now students, please pay attention, it's very important. We know that the general form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so if the coefficient of x squared It could be any number, a positive number, a negative number. If it is a positive number, your graph, we call this graph a parabola. This parabola would be a U-shaped graph, okay? It would be of this type. It would be a U-shaped graph. But if the coefficient of x squared is negative, it would be other way around, okay? It would be something of this type. So students, we would be having a minimum point for this parabola and a maximum point for this parabola, okay? So for one quadratic function, you can either find the minimum point or the maximum point. This would depend, okay? We will look at the coefficient of x squared. If it is positive, we would know we would get the minimum point. If the coefficient of x squared is negative, then we would get a maximum point. So let's see how to decide that. Okay, all right. Okay, so I would like to ask, how many of you are good with the plotting of a quadratic curve? Any basic idea, like 50% idea? You can tell me if you guys are not familiar. Obviously, I would tell you, but I just want to know. Mustafa, Selina, Munja, Rafe, and Saad, please tell me.
Miss, I didn't get your question.
Okay, basically, I am asking, do you guys know how to plot a quadratic curve?
Yes, miss.
Okay, all right. And what about the other students? Okay, even if you guys don't know, okay, all right, great. Okay, great. So I am going to erase this. We'll talk about an example. For the first one, I will discuss the plotting as well, just so everything is fresh in your minds, okay? So let's talk about a question. F of x is x squared minus 3x minus 4. This is f of x. Part A says, find the excess crossing points for the graph of this, okay? It says, find the excess crossing points for the graph of y equals f of x. Okay, so it's simple. It's easy. You will see it's very easy. Let's talk about the solution. Now the examiner wants you to find the excess crossing points. Okay, that means we need to plot the graph first, and once the graph is plotted, we are going to see that at exactly which points of the x-axis and y-axis my curve is cutting the axis, right? Okay, let me make the axis first. This is my y-axis. This is my x-axis. Okay, all right. Now let's start off from the beginning, okay? The coefficient of x squared is 1. It is positive. So I know my graph would be having a minimum point. It would be something of this type. Step 2 is to find the factors, okay? So we will find the factors. I'll be writing down the factors directly because it's easy. I can write it this way. X plus 1 into x minus 4 is equal to 0, okay? This means that x is equal to minus 1 and x is equal to 4. So step 1 is to find out the roots of the quadratic equation, and that is minus 1 and it is 4, okay? So without thinking about anything, now I can just make the graph. It would be cutting the axis at these points, and it would be something of this type, okay? Now we are interested in this point because my graph is cutting the x-axis at this point, and this point as well, okay? 2 points are obvious. Can anyone tell me the coordinates of this point? X is minus 1, and what is the value of y? Yes, students, we know on x-axis y is 0, right? This is my y-axis, this is my x-axis. On x-axis, y is 0. And what about this point? What are the coordinates of this point? Please tell me.
4 and 0.
Very good. 4 and 0. Excellent. Okay. The question was about finding the excess crossing points. So I will be finding out the points which my yellow curve is cutting. Okay. Both on the x-axis, on the y-axis. And this is the third point. Can anyone tell me how am I going to find this point? Okay, I'll tell you. We are going to find this point. How? By basically knowing that on the y-axis, x would be 0. Okay. Now x would be 0. This is the equation. My equation is y equals x squared minus 3x minus 4. In order to find this point, I can plug in the value of x, that is 0. Then I would get y equals minus 4. So this minus 4 is going to be the coordinates of this point. I'll repeat it again. This is a fixed question, one of the most favorite questions of the examiner. I'll explain again. Please pay attention. Okay. Here we are basically talking about the plotting of the quadratic function. Okay. In order to plot the quadratic function, we need two things. First of all, you need to see if the coefficient of x squared is positive or negative. The coefficient of x squared is 1 here. It is positive. So it would be a U-shaped graph. Okay. So I made a yellow U-shaped graph. Okay. Number 2. Second thing is that I need to see on which points exactly the yellow curve would cut the x-axis. For that, I need to solve this equation. How do we solve a quadratic equation? We know that already, right? So I have to solve the quadratic equation and I got x equals minus 1 and x equals 4. Now I know that my yellow graph would be a U-shaped graph that would be touching the x-axis at minus 1 and 4. And that is how I made the graph. The question was about finding the excess crossing points. I have two x's. The first is y, the other one is x. So on the x-axis, the points were minus 1, 0, 4, 0. And on the y-axis, I know that when it comes to the y-axis, x is 0. Okay. X is 0 on y-axis. So I've plugged in x equals 0 over here. This would give me 0. This would give me 0. And I was left with minus 4. That is how I know that these three would be the excess crossing points. Now be honest with yourselves and tell me if you are not clear with this. This is very, very important. That is why I'm emphasizing on this. We need to do the second part. But before that, please tell me quickly if this is good or not. Yes. Yes, Munja, Saad.
Clear.
Mustafa,
Yes, clear.
Okay, all right. And
Yes,
what
quite
about the...
understandable. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, great. Okay, so basically, the next part of this question is find the coordinates of the vertex. Okay, what is vertex? Vertex is this point exactly. Vertex is basically the turning point. Okay, vertex has multiple names. It can be the turning point, the stationary point, the vertex. Okay, so we have these three names and all of them are basically referring to the screen point. Okay, the minimum point of the graph. Okay, now a parabola is supposed to be a symmetric curve. Okay, a symmetric means that on the left side and on the right side it would be equally distributed. So I will make a line here. Okay, I need to find the coordinates of the green point because the next part of the question is find the coordinates of the vertex. Okay, now this green line is the line of symmetry. I know in case of my graph it doesn't look like the graph is symmetric, but it is supposed to be symmetric. Okay, how do we find it? We know that this coordinate, this x coordinate is minus 1, this x coordinate is 4. So this would be the midpoint of minus 1 and 4. Okay, this would be the midpoint of minus 1 and 4. Okay, all right. So Let's find out the midpoint of -1 and 4. How do we find it? 4 plus -1 divided by 2. So it would give me 3 by 2. So 3 by 2 is the x coordinate of the vertex. And what about the y coordinate? We have a fixed method. Once we have the x coordinate, I am going to plug in the x coordinate over here, right? Let me do that quickly. It is 3x. So it would become 3 by 2 squared minus 3 into 3 by 2 minus 4. And upon simplification, you will get minus 25 by 4. So the y coordinate is minus 25 by 4. Okay. So this is going to be, these are going to be the coordinates of the vertex. Okay, and this is your minimum point. Okay, so I'll give you a quick summary. In this section specifically, we will be focusing on maximum and minimum values, and we would get the maximum and minimum values by finding the vertex. Now here, this was a U-shaped curve, so this is going to be the minimum value. We'll talk about another example. There we would be having a maximum, we would be having the curve other way around. So there the vertex would give you the maximum value. Okay. All right, let's talk about the other example and then things would be clear. I am going to clear the entire screen. Okay, those who have just joined, please focus on this one and then you would be clear with it. All right, so let me write down the second example. That is y is equal to 16x minus 7 minus 4x squared. This is going to be my quadratic equation. Okay, and the question is sketch the graph of this. So you need to sketch the graph of this. Okay, all right, so first of all I will write it down in a better way. I can write it down this way: y is equal to minus 4x squared plus 16x minus 7. Okay, now the only thing I can see at this point is that this coefficient of x squared is a negative number. It means a is less than 0. When a is less than 0, I am going to get something of this type, right? But I've told you, in order to make the graph, we need to solve the quadratic equation in order to see that on which points exactly the graph would get cut the x-axis. Okay. All right. So for now, I know that I would be having this type of a graph, but I need to solve this equation as well. Okay. All right. Can you guys please solve this equation and tell me the values of x? I'll write down the equation properly. You need to solve minus 4x squared plus 16x minus 7 equals 0, because on the x-axis y is 0. So this y would become 0. Please try solving this, whatever way you are comfortable. Very well, well done, Saad. Excellent. And what about the other students? Please try solving it quickly. I'm waiting. Okay. I know that I need two numbers such that when I multiply them, I get positive 28x squared. Okay. So it could be 2 and 14. So I can write it down this way: minus 4x squared plus 2x plus 14x minus 7 equals 0. Here I can take 2x common. It would give me minus 2x plus 1. And here I can take minus 2 common. So it would give me minus 7 common, sorry. Minus 7. So it would give me minus 2x plus 1 equals 0, right? You can do factorization according to yourself. That is completely fine. 2x minus 7 into minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. And it would give me x equals 7 by 2 and x equals 1 by 2. Okay. So these are the two values of x. So step 1 was to find out the coefficient of x squared, that was negative, and step 2 was to solve the equation. I'm done. Now you'll see how I am going to make the graph. So this is y-axis, this is x-axis, this is 1 by 2, this is 7 by 2. Let's make the graph. It is negative, so it would give me a maximum point. And the graph is going to be something of this type, right? Obviously, it should be more neat, but I'm just making it through my pen over here. So it's not that perfect. Let me just extend this line as well. It would be something of this type, right? Then you can find out this point for the sake of completeness. Please find out this coordinate on the y-axis quickly. I'll again give you the hint on the y-axis, x is 0. So you can just plug in 0, 0, and it would give you 0 and minus 7. Now, you guys need to find this point, okay? Just find the coordinates of the vertex, and this vertex is going to be the maximum point this time around because the coefficient of x squared was negative. All right, okay, very good, Munja. Yes, please find out the coordinates of the vertex quickly. Yes, students, I'm waiting. Okay, well done, Ahmed. Very good. The x coordinate is correct. Very good, Rafi. Okay, please pay attention, those who did not do. So we have a fixed method of finding out the coordinates of the vertex. I know this graph is going to be symmetrical. So this red point and the x coordinate of this red point is the exact center of 1 by 2 and 7 by 2. How do we figure that out? So I will do 1 by 2, that is 0.5 plus 3.5 divided by 2, and it would give me 2. So this is going to be 2 comma, and now once the x coordinate is 2, I need to find the y coordinate. For that, I will plug in x equals 2 over here. So I will plug in 16 into 2 minus 7 minus 4. Very good. Thank you. Excellent. Plus 2 squared, and it would give you 9. Okay. So this is going to be the vertex, that is 2, 9, and it is the maximum point in this case because a was negative, right? The coefficient of x squared was negative. Yes. So any confusions?
No, miss.
All right.
No.
Okay. Okay. Good. Great. All right. Okay. Let me quickly see. We have 3 more minutes and then we have another section. So, yep, okay. I think that is it for today. But if you have any questions, any queries, just ask me right now. Just so I can address them there and then.
Miss,
Miss,
Yes.
go on.
okay, Miss, where are you placing the recordings?
The recordings are with me. If you need the recordings, I will send you the recordings directly, right?
Okay, Miss.
Okay, you need the recordings? You can let me know, okay? On message, I will just send you the recordings. Just send me the lecture day and then I'll send you those recordings.
Okay, Miss.
All right, okay.
Miss,
Yes.
in this part here, the second line above the graph,
Okay, okay.
in
Hmm?
which like y is equal to negative 4x and it is crossed by 0.
Okay,
I
this
just
one?
don't know what does that mean.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Don't worry. I'll tell you, okay? So basically, this step was done in order to find this coordinate, right? The red one. This is basically the y-axis. I need to see that at what is the coordinate, the red coordinate, right? I know on the y-axis, x is 0, right? This is 0. I know on the
Yes.
y-axis, x is 0. So I will plug in x equals 0 here. When I will plug in x equals 0 here, this would become 0. This would become 0 and I would be left with -7 only. So the coordinates would be 0 and -7. That is why we just did this thing. This one, right?
Thank you, Miss.
All right, okay. So now we know in order to make a quadratic graph, step 1 is we need to look at A is the coefficient of x squared. Step 2 is solve the quadratic equation, find the values of x. Step 3 is finding out this value. Finding out this value how? By plugging in x equals 0 because on the y-axis x is 0, okay? And the last step is finding out the coordinates of the vertex. So for that, we need to find the x coordinate first. How do we find it? By finding out the midpoint of the two roots we calculated by solving the quadratic equation. In our case, it was 7/2 and 1/2, and the midpoint was 2. And once we have the midpoint, again, we need to plug in this 2 in these x in order to find the value of y, and that turned out to be 9. So these are some steps which we follow in order to find the graph. So you need to practice this, okay? I will send you 3 questions right now after the class. Just solve them and send me your homeworks because obviously this is for your betterment. Okay, you need to try doing this and please try doing it neatly just so I'm able to understand. This is very, very important. Okay, tomorrow we will talk about the new section, but before that we will talk about some past paper questions, and there you will see how much all this content is important. Okay, so practice is important. I'll send you 3 questions, solve them, and then we will just solve a few past paper questions in the class. Okay. All right. So any other question?
No, Miss.
All right. Okay. So I'll stop sharing the screen. I'll stop the